Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast.
All right, so today we are here with my friend, one of my fellow chamber board members, Chris Abadie, and he's with Colliers, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself, his experience, and how he got into this crazy world of commercial real estate.
Thank you, Lauren. Well, Jared and Lauren, thank you for having me here. I really do appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, it wasn't on purpose. This is probably my...
It never is.
You're the second person today that has said that it wasn't on purpose.
This was really my, I guess, third career getting out of college. I was a business major and actually worked for a sign company that morphed into a software company. And from there, I moved on and was actually a territory manager with Bluebell Ice Cream here and based out of the Slidell branch.
And who else was here?
We've had two people that
We
were
just
down with
had
the
a
Bluebell.
pod.
What was your favorite Bluebell ice cream?
What was my favorite flavor?
Yeah.
Favorite flavor?
There's two funny stories about that. I actually liked one that was called chocolate pecan cheesecake because it had a little bit of a bitter flavor to it.
That's a complicated flavor there.
I don't think they've made it in a long time, but then every year they would ask us to go out and come up with ideas for flavors. And so one year my wife came up with the idea of a wedding cake flavor, and so we kind of made it, brought it to the branch. What you had to do is you had to kind of make it, and then they pack it in dry ice, and then they send it off to Brenham, Texas.
Oh, wow.
And they go back and they try to remake that flavor, and they make it a little better and different things. And then, so for years went by, and well, I take that back. So the first year went by, and they said, "Oh, look, we almost made the flavor. We decided to kind of shelve it for now. We may bring it out at some other time." And then a couple of years
They
later,
brought it out.
a couple of years later, they had their anniversary cake ice cream that they brought out for their 100th anniversary, and it was the same ice cream. I didn't work for Bluebell anymore.
Love it.
And you don't get anything for it. It really is a family over there. It's a great company, and but it's a little bit of feather in your cap if one of your ice creams gets made.
Absolutely.
And then
That's one of the best ice creams they make.
well, and
It's
then
really
fast forward another 10 years, and they brought it back out again as bride's cake. They did tweak it just a little bit in the icing that's in the thing, but that's
Your wife did that.
Yeah, it was her idea, and then I kind of came up with how do you make it,
It's
and how do
always
you
the wife's
implement it.
idea.
And,
Have y'all not figured this out
Well,
yet?
yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
well, you guys both know my wife. I mean,
Right.
the ideas are
Incredible.
coming from her, not from me, right? So, but and then
We
while I
gotta
was
hire from Bluebell though. Like this is
They're-
two
they-
good people that we've had on here recently.
they're a great company. Like I said, really family oriented and great people that they have working there. So if you look at some of the business leaders in our community, a lot of them have gone through Bluebell in some way. And then got my real estate license just kind of by happenstance. And then my wife was working for a commercial real estate company. And then when they found out I had my license, they asked me, "Hey, would you ever consider doing this?" And so we were at a position then in our lives where we could, and no kids yet or anything. So I went ahead and made the switch, and that's how I got into commercial real estate.
And how long ago was that?
About 25 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Love
So
it.
But before
And he's
we,
only 30. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
that's right.
how impactful was having good leadership, though, and being a part of a company like that to help propel you into what you've been doing for the last 25 years?
It really is the organizations, I've been very fortunate that I've worked with several organizations that were very team oriented, and I've been able to carry that forward kind of into my leadership and my role now at Colliers, where I am a, market leader for them. And we're, communication's the key, and we communicate regularly with honesty with our people, and both going up the ladder and down the ladder. And it's been very effective.
And you're talking about all of the internal, right? Internally,
yes.
We're not even talking about how you deal with your clients, but just shaping the perspective of the organization that you're a part of. It bleeds into the expectation you have with your clients. You can't be that way internally. You're having a really hard time communicating and treating your clients that way.
Yeah, that's absolutely accurate. I mean, I think that when we're dealing with our clients and we're talking to them, I mean, it comes across. If you're not confident in what you say, so in other words, if you don't have the knowledge and the understanding, but if you don't have, if you're not blatantly honest with them, you're not going to have success at the end of the day. In commercial real estate, one of the things that you can do and to try to get business is go to a seller and overprice the property going in. I mean, you just can't do that going in. You have to be very honest with them, and you have to find those people that are willing to be able to understand the nuances of what they're trying to accomplish as well, or you're not going to have success at the end of the day. You're going to have a listing that sits on the market for 2 years and never sells.
Right.
And that's detrimental to your brand.
Sure.
I love that you love with communication, though, because we have this little concept called the 3 C's that we use to set our standard for all of the Arena Collective organizations. And that first C is communication. Like, it's imperative to success on so many levels, whether it's internally or externally. And then I love how you pointed out, though, but it's just, you have to be truthful. You have to be communicating with integrity. You have to be as honest as you possibly can. You got to get ahead of it and act fast and communicate quickly.
I agree with you entirely.
Yeah. And and that's kind of, does the culture of those companies bleed into what you're doing outside of just those things? Because I mean, from what I know you more of your charitable time that you spend with the chamber or with the other organizations. Like, usually when we run into each other, that's the world we're living in. How does that play into the bigger picture?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be asked to be the chair of the St. Tammany Chamber in 2024, and that was my big mission for the year. And Lauren's heard this a million times, so I apologize.
I love it.
You're going to hear it again.
It's a good story. I brag about you all the time.
Thank you. But one of the big challenges I think we had in St. Tammany Parish was there wasn't a lot of great communication, whether that's, telling the story and getting the facts out there about a millage renewal or, some specific issue related to the community, or just the decision makers communicating with each other internally. And so we made it our mission that year to facilitate that communication, whether it be, public forums, outreach to the public, or whether it's just making sure that the council people and the parish president are, having good, viable dialogue. Not necessarily not fighting, but that they're keeping the lines of communication open. Because when you're making difficult decisions, especially in the political arena, sometimes you have to be adversaries, and that's your mission from your constituents. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to come back the next day and make another decision. So you can't go to your corner and not communicate with each other. And so hopefully we've helped to engage those different decision makers and those stakeholders in the community.
Definitely have more improvements to make, but we definitely made big strides. I would say so.
Did they teach you in law school about how critical it is in business to not take things so personally? Because it's not something that you hear people talk about enough. And like, even from a political standpoint and from a business standpoint, I've had several conversations recently where people are like apologizing for making a business decision, like that they feel like they're hurting my feelings or they're hurting other people's feelings. I'm like, it's a business. You made the decision, and I'm not gonna take it personally that you made a decision for your organization. But you don't learn that kind of stuff in school, in my opinion. You have to go through life and experience that. Probably having positive experiences with business and leadership and understanding that. But I think that people miss that boat in a small town, especially.
Yeah. Well, first you said when I went to law school, which I didn't go to law school.
I mean, in business school.
In business school. But just for clarity there. But I think it's important to be able to learn how to lose, not just learn how to win. I talk about that all the time. People that are athletes, oftentimes they end up being, it seems to me like guys that I played sports with, there's two kinds of guys. Either they peaked while they were playing sports and they didn't learn the lesson, and then there are those that learn the lesson. And oftentimes when I talk about this in business, people jump out and in front of the next statement I'm about to make, and they say, "Oh yeah, you like athletes because they know how to win." And I go, "No, I like athletes because they know how to lose, and they know they have to come back the next day. And in a lot of cases, they've got to play that same team again later in the season. So you got to learn from it and get better from it the next time." And so it's really important to be able to be civil, in the way we interact with each other, regardless of the outcome, regardless of if you won or got your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The analogy, like sports is, I love sports. I really don't talk about it as much as I used to, in the way that I like just the lessons that you've learned. And I've been played baseball and football my whole life, and wasn't the best athlete on the team, but just earning your spot because you worked hard and you earned your spot. And then the seniority of the respect that you get from the other players who are coming in and learning the sport, and then the confidence you get once you win a little bit and you've experienced that. Like, my last game in high school was a state championship baseball game where we won. And most people, their last organized sport, they go to the playoffs and they lose. Like, very rarely do you leave and like, I want a state championship in baseball. Like, it wasn't like this huge crowning moment, but it was just the momentum that carried forward as I went into college and then going to law school. It's incredible. Like, sports are really awesome, amazing. And then our kids are in swimming. It's a whole different dynamic of competing with yourself,
right?
And against the clock,
right,
more than against the person, or almost as much or more than the person in the lane next to you. So,
So in your state championship season, did you guys go undefeated?
we did not. Oh no.
Exactly.
Oh, my coach, and it's just so you're so right. My coach intentionally made us play teams that were incredibly better than us.
Right.
Until we got into the last end of the last stretch of the season, where we had seen guys like Austin Ross who were throwing no hitters against us,
Right.
And my claim to fame was he actually got a one hitter against us. I got I was a 9-hole DH, and I would hit a single to left field off of Austin, and I was buddies with him in college. I always reminded him of that. You beat us, but I got a hit. But yeah, just like all that kind of stuff. We learned how to lose, but we also got better because we got to see that kind of talent. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Sports are awesome, and they just have such correlation to life in general. But let's get into real estate, though. Sure. So, we talk a lot about how our ideal client's a business owner looking to grow their business, right? They're looking to scale and grow. And when you're getting started, a lot of that is creating systems and operations so that you can make sure you run more efficiently and you have your finances are working the way that you need them to help you hit your goals. But real estate plays a part of business. At a certain point in time, you can make a decision as whether you're going to continue to lease or you need to buy. And so when you have a business owner that is in that position, what advice do you give somebody whenever they're saying, I've been leasing my whole existence of our business, but we think we might want to buy this property? How does that process work?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's multiple ways. I mean, you have to find out more about the business and what their goals are long term. What's the reason they're trying to buy the property? I'd probably say the other way around. In a lot of cases, I mean, if you talk to the commercial lenders today, it's kind of funny. All my friends that are bankers, I say to them all the time, hey, man, are you guys writing any loans? And they're like, oh, yeah, man, we're really busy. We're writing loans. And I say, are you writing any loans that are not owner-occupant loans?
Right.
And they go, oh, well, and I go, yeah. So it's a running joke with all of my friends that are lenders. And the reason I'm saying that is because the reason that you if you're an owner-occupant, oftentimes when you're a sole proprietor, if you're an attorney, if you're a doctor, those types of businesses lend themselves to being owner-occupants. And then at some point, if they want to grow and branch out, it probably makes sense for them to go ahead and sell and lease back to create some revenue, some cash where they can go out and reinvest that in another property. And so helping lead them through that decision is a key component to what we do. It's one of the 500 different analyses that we do. And at Colliers, we have different tools. And we have, because we have 18,000 people worldwide in the
1,000
in the organization. Yeah, it's we're a worldwide organization. We have all these different service lines that most other companies don't have here, but we leverage everybody's expertise. And so I don't have to be, although I know that particular situation pretty well, I don't have to be the full expert. I can bring somebody in or bring in a resource to help analyze it. We also have all this, I say all this software. We have multiple different softwares that we can use, but really understanding the goal, the long-term goal of the client, and becoming it's a little bit of a cliche these days, but the trusted advisor, and having that trusted advisor role, trying to help them attain their goals are the key components to how we would put together a plan to be able to implement the strategy that they want moving forward. So it's a confluence of the technology that we have. It's the resources, the expertise, and then the local market knowledge. I mean, I've been doing this in this market for 25 years in one way or the other, whether it's in management or whether it's in brokerage. And, ingrained in the chamber, like you talked about before, I sit on the regional planning commission. I'm on the workforce development board for St. Tammany. So really try to get ingrained into this community and the surrounding parishes as well.
Yeah. One of the things that we take pride in in this building that we have is that it speaks to our brand very clearly, right? And so I think that businesses that operate in a lease space sometimes can kind of fit into the culture or the branding or the vibe you get when you walk into a building, because it's somebody else's spec they built and you're moving in and you make it your own as much as you can. How important is that to a business that's local? I mean, we're in a smaller community, right? We're not Houston and even New Orleans. Like, we're a smaller community, and everybody, we have unique brands and good businesses around here. How important is that to make sure that you're meeting the company's culture as well as their financial needs or their efficiency needs?
I think it really kind of depends on how big your company is, what the brand is. Like, for instance, one of the reasons why I associated with Colliers is because they're more entrepreneurial than some of the other big companies that are out there across the world. They also had a hole in their geography, and they were looking in this market. And we had relationships. I'd worked with and dealt with Colliers brokers for 25 years. And so felt there was a good cultural fit there. So you got to start with culture and then make it your own in some way that fits the geography in which you're trying to accomplish. If you're a Walmart or Costco, it's a lot stricter in what
you need a box.
leeway you would
what
have.
Kind of box you
Exactly.
need. Any franchise, yeah.
You fit more into the structure. But even with franchises, in some cases, there is a little bit of variability. Maybe they allow you to have one specific menu item that caters to the local market if it's a restaurant or something like that. And if you go to any of the Jimmy John's locations that Drew Brees is an owner in, it's a Jimmy John's just like you go to in Ohio or Nebraska, but it's got the sign with the number 9 in the window. Sometimes the little things like that can help you build your own culture within a culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that it's interesting whenever you look at it from that perspective, because as a business grows, you walk into that business every day, you don't necessarily realize how big of an impact it can make to have your own brand and spin on things, but to be a part of the local community. I mean, Jimmy John's is a national brand, like you said now, but we don't feel like it's national because it's still localized to us, and you still get that local vibe. Even the Lit Pizza down the street, they have their branding has got. Reheat that on the side of it, DAT. It's
right.
Like, the little things that you can do to really make a difference. I didn't realize that franchises even gave them that option. I thought they pretty much put them in the box, and you had to live that brand to 100%.
I mean, I think it depends. I think if you're Drew Brees, you get a little bit of leeway.
Or you have a good franchise attorney that negotiates it well for you.
There you go. That makes you look, and that's a good point. I mean, good legal representation is a huge key component to everything that we do. We're constantly looking at signing legal documents. I mean, these are things that are going to bind you throughout the course of whatever that whatever the parameters of the document state, and you need to make sure that they're correct. And so having that good local resource that understands, the nuances of each jurisdiction that you're operating in too. We have corporate attorneys that help me with some of the documents here because I'm the broker for Louisiana, and that's great. But there's a give and take. There's a give and take. I mean, because she's out of state, and so I send her things, and then we have to talk about it a little bit sometimes before we actually, sign on the dotted line. And that's a great example.
So and from a commercial real estate agent, I think that some business owners who, again, haven't gone through the experience of buying a commercial property may not understand the full scope of the advice that you're talking about, right? You said you're a trusted advisor, and from that standpoint, how much are you involved in helping them make sure their finances are in order? And I know you're not going to put the final stamp, but walking them through those steps.
So there's two different ways that we can accomplish that. And number one is we do have one of the value propositions for Colliers is we have a debt and equity team. We have a valuation services team that can come in and appraise the property. We can kind of handle everything from soup to nuts. We can raise equity if you need equity partners to go and do those kinds of things. We have, all these different service lines that we can activate. We have engineering. We have Colliers Engineering and Design. So we can do surveys and engineering and all of that stuff. And then, so that's something that we can do internally. But externally, if our guys aren't the best fit for what our clients need at the end of the day, we also have great relationships with local vendors, like the Arena Collective, for instance. I mean, one of the things we don't do is negotiate on behalf, on the legal side, on behalf of our clients. And so that is something we always outsource, and we're always looking for attorneys. But, relationships with local lenders, and depending on whether it's we have the knowledge and understanding of, the buckets in which these local lenders, what fits into their portfolio. Like the portfolio for Fidelity is different than First Horizon, then is different than Red River Bank, then is different from a large, institutional investor like a life insurance company or something. Yeah. And so you got to understand all of those things and have relationships on all of those levels to be successful.
Yeah, that's the key to all that community involvement. You get the relationships and you build the relationships that are necessary to be a resource to your client. If you're not spending that extra time putting yourself out there, you cannot be the resource that you want to be. So people that are stuck in their office just unfortunately cannot offer the same type of service.
Look, and I'd say this too. I mean, it like from a legal standpoint, there's so many times I have to, we may be representing a multinational corporation that's coming here and they're going to buy a piece of land. And that piece of land is owned by a legacy owner that, their family has owned it and it's a sugarcane field and it's been sugarcane fields for 200 years, you don't want to send them a 40-page document, right?
No.
And so that's why my call to one of the two of you is so important, because having that multinational company understand that they have to deal on a local level, and these are the people that really can help them because these are their neighbors.
Yeah.
Right.
That are willing to sit down and have a conversation with them one-on-one.
They're willing to go sit in the farmhouse and have a conversation.
We've had two conversations today. And
Alligator Farm you were at. Where else did you go recently?
Yeah, it's especially when there's businesses that are operating, right? Like you go and you're willing to drive to their office or their facility and have a conversation with them in their element when they're making a decision like that. I mean, it's huge. The answer to me is always yes. It's one, because I like to see what my clients are doing, right? Like to get to experience their life and what they have going on is great, and see their process because they're proud of it, right? They've been doing it for so long, and then giving them the comfort of being in the room with them, especially when the banker can come too and the agents. We're all in the room together at their facility, having the conversations with them and congratulating them, and it makes a huge difference than just being so transactional where you're just going to send over a document, tell them to redline it back to you, and then I'll be back with you in another 2 weeks to respond to your email. It makes a huge difference in the comfortability of the transaction.
And I'll say this, in probably about 75% of the transactions that we close on, at some point there is at least one principal-to-principal conversation in there. And that's, usually you start off and it's broker to broker or broker to principal, and you're going back and forth, but at some point, those people always want to be able to sit across the table, like you're saying, look each other in the eye, and understand that somebody's not trying to pull something over on them. And it works. I mean, it's very helpful.
90% of the time, if you get two people in the room that are trying to negotiate over something they have that they're stuck on, they're going to find a solution if you get them sit at the same table.
Yeah.
Looking the other human in the face and make it. 90% of the time, it's going to happen. Even no matter how frustrated they can be apart, once you get them in the same room, it usually clears it up pretty quick.
It's kind of like social media, right? I mean, you got keyboard warriors, but once they get in the room together, they have you have that
different
conversation.
Tone.
Same thing we tried to do with the chamber last year. Make sure everybody's communicating and, understands the perspective of the other person and where they're coming from to be able to make informed decisions.
But I mean, and I wanted to talk to you about this because you've been operating in this market for 25 years, and Lauren's been living your whole life. Y'all are both in Slidell, right? Or you've been living in Slidell for a long time. How important is St. Tammany Parish to you and the business that you've operated?
I go out of my way to try to work with and accomplish things in St. Tammany. Right now, at this current moment, we were hired. Colliers was hired by the city of Slidell to do a redevelopment study on the North Shore Square Mall, and there's a lot of nuances we can get into on that. It's a complicated project, but it's being administered by the St. Tammany Economic Development Corporation, but it's really at the behest of it and of the city of Slidell. And so we were able to, through my relationships, I was able to bring in our placemaking team, I forget the official name for them, but in essence, they're urban planners, and they do this all over the country. They do it in the United States. They do it in Canada. They're actually based out of Vancouver. And then also I was able to leverage the resources of bringing in our Colliers Engineering and Design, an architect from Philadelphia that's done many, many, many mall redevelopments throughout his career. So bringing the outside resources, which I think is a challenge when you're dealing with a local group anywhere, not just here, but in all facets of all the different cities I deal with, a lot of people only see it as their geography. And so being able to bring in the outside perspective and then having somebody that understands the goals and the needs of St. Tammany Parish and marrying that together to be able to create a report that then hopefully the politicians and that the community can get behind, but also the politicians can make good informed decisions using, I think, is paramount to it. And that's really one of the big value propositions for Colliers is, we have the local people. We have people that are ingrained in the community, that were born in those communities, that have lived in those communities, that know the politicians, that go to church and they go to the grocery store there and they read NOLA.com. I would say read the newspaper, but it's NOLA.com now, and then you also have these, world-renowned resources that you can bring to the table to be able to get stuff done here. And I see a lot of opportunity in St. Tammany, and I hear a lot that, sometimes we can't get out of our own way, but that's not just a St. Tammany thing.
Yeah.
That's really any
world.
jurisdiction. It really is.
That was God confirming, in case y'all
or
heard that
he didn't
thunder.
like what I just said.
He was
Yeah.
like, you're right about that.
Yeah. But, and I'm not from here, but I still see St. Tammany. I'm from Alexandria originally, but, obviously it's grown a lot. I do closings with people who've been here for a long time and the family been here for a long time, and they talk about how downtown Covington was a dirt road. Nothing was on Highway 21. Madisonville was not nearly what it is now. With Terrabella.
Area. Where we're sitting now.
2008. So but I still see it as so much green space and opportunity for development and growth and businesses to come in.
And we have the tax imbalance, and I talk about that. That's another one I talk about all the time. Is it's my understanding that St. Tammany Parish, from a property tax standpoint, the residents of St. Tammany pay the highest percentage of property taxes in the state. Not that it's unwarranted. We started off as a bedroom community for other communities, but now we have our own MSA. We have our own, business community here in St. Tammany. The only way to change that, though, is to allow more businesses to grow in St. Tammany Parish. So when you get more, physical businesses, then it can help take that burden a little bit off of the residents. The other thing I hear all the time is infrastructure in St. Tammany, and I have a different take on that. I actually feel like major developments create infrastructure. Maybe they don't necessarily create it, but they're the catalyst for it. If you look at like improvements on Highway 21 in Covington, those don't get done without Nordlac and without River Chase. And they're creating more traffic, but at the same time,
They put the pressure on the
huge
system
traffic huge traffic problems there in the first place. Yeah. And the other, I think, misconception is we need to be more spread out with our development. It actually puts a larger strain on the infrastructure if you're more spread out. The more you cluster it together, because you're putting in the same pipes and you're putting in the same lines, if you cluster them closer together, it actually has less of an impact on the environmental, because you're not developing as much land over a larger period.
And the redevelopment or the reinvestment, like the North Shore Square Mall, where
Correct.
we had this huge blighted property that was once a thriving area, that's an opportunity for development.
Yeah, and look, market conditions have changed. When that mall was built, it was servicing all of St. Tammany Parish and the surrounding regions.
Everybody came to that mall.
Everybody
Mississippi, everywhere. It's an indoor mall. I know you didn't live those days, but that was where you went. It was an event to go walk the mall.
I'm not that young. I'm from Alexandria. The only reason why I came to Alexandria was
you had a mall in Alexandria, right up from the Sonic. Right there. Yeah.
People when I was growing up.
Did y'all walk the mall as an event on Friday night? All right.
My grandparents, like people from Gina and Buckeye and all these other places, if you went out of Alexandria and they went to New Orleans for the weekends, like, where are you from? I'm from Alexandria. It's like, no, you're not. You're from 20 minutes outside of Alexandria. But like, it was just everybody came to Alexandria for either a little bit of food, or we got a Semolina's in Alexandria. Dude, the people were coming from the woodworks,
No, but that's a good example, because that's another mall that's a struggling project. And so those suburban malls just, are challenged across the entire United States, but specific to the North Shore Square Mall, you were pulling Mandeville and you were pulling Covington. And so when River Chase opened, when Premier Center opened, they're great developments and they were very much needed, but you had junior anchors and anchors now that were on that side of the parish, so there wasn't a great need to drive to Slidell anymore. And so that's when the Target sales started to go down. When Target was the only Target in St. Tammany, it was in Slidell. The mall sales started to go down, and then eventually you had Fremo Town Center that was built, which is closer to the center of the population that it serves now, and it made the mall no longer viable for retail. And we also had the confluence of all these department stores going out of business, because department stores at the high end of the category, the luxury end, do pretty well. The department stores at the discount end do pretty well. It's the ones in the middle that you see struggling. The J.C. Penney's that have closed most of their stores. The Macy's, which is doing a little better, but has closed a bunch of their stores. Sears went out of business. If you think about it from that perspective, we just don't need all that retail anymore. And then you add, the omni-channel presence, and you add online sales to it, and it makes it a really difficult.
So, like, what's a reasonable solution that other places have used for something like the Slidell Mall?
Depending on the need, it's different for each community. It really gets localized. So some places have had the opportunity to turn their existing malls into medical malls, or the city or the parish, or in those cases the counties, some kind of jurisdiction comes in and they kind of take it over. In this case, my personal view is we probably don't need another hospital in Slidell. We got two.
We got a lot.
And they're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. Then you have the rehab facility in Lacombe, so you don't really need that long-term acute care. So probably not medical. I'd say actually gave us a list of categories to kind of research and look at, and logistics and distribution makes sense. Logistics is the new retail, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And then
especially where we're positioned.
exactly. I
For
mean,
St.
we're
Tammany and Tangi. We all know this.
10, 59, 12, 55. The new LIT port going in St. Bernard, it does make a lot of sense for more logistics properties to be in St. Tammany Parish. But, you add to it the thought of light manufacturing or assembly, if possible, from a standpoint of creating jobs and revenue. And then the one outlier there that they asked us to look at, and I think it's probably at some point going to be viable. I don't know about it right now, but at some point is, a larger scale event center. In St. Tammany, we don't have that where you can host, larger scale volleyball and basketball tournaments, but maybe even have concerts. I mean, what about high school graduations?
I'm aware of this. I travel for those volleyball tournaments quite often.
Cheerleading competitions, another big thing that we didn't recognize going into this.
A natatorium, no.
Natatoriums. A natatorium would be great.
Close. I think the West Bank, when the Archdiocese purchased that old, I forget the name off the top of my head right now, but one of their facilities for abandoned kids, they're now going to restructure that. Hopefully, don't have dates on that, but it's supposed to
that would be great. I would love to see
amazing.
it in the region. From the standpoint of who owns it and operates it, at the end of the day, natatoriums are always challenged because of the cost to operate long term. But the one key, I guess, industry segment that we maybe didn't think of right off the bat, but has been brought to our attention by multiple sources, is e-gaming, big e-gaming tournaments. Yeah. They're apparently huge and everywhere. I mean, I'm a little too. Again, we can look to Jared.
Yeah, I know.
He could tell us about it.
But
We're a little too old.
I was around for that.
Yeah.
Remember Duck Hunt?
Yeah,
Sonic?
the NES, the Nintendo NES, came with Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. It was great. It was awesome. So.
She usually gives me a hard time when I call her old.
He's like, I've seen those in the encyclopedias.
Yeah. I played those whenever I was at the classic arcade.
That's right.
But so I think it's great that you talked about that because it shows your expertise in that field. But I do want to go back to the tax thing though, because you kind of touched on it a little bit. People see property taxes as the revenue for the parish, right? How do businesses play into the revenue for the parish that would offset some of the property taxes that we're paying on our residents?
Well, I mean,
because they're paying their taxes and they're higher because it's higher revenue.
You put a property into service, and you're right. The value of the property is higher, especially on a commercial property. So their property tax rates are typically higher, and then or the amount of money they're paying in property taxes is higher than a residence would pay. But also, if there's a component to it that's got some kind of retail on it, then there's sales tax revenue as well. So. In this case,
that's what supports our development, our infrastructure development.
Right.
Right. If you do the faucet analogy, you don't just turn the faucet off and walk away and expect everything to fix itself. Right. If you bring in more revenue in, then we can make those repairs and those changes necessary.
But it also creates jobs, and it creates other additional sales tax revenue. Let's say you did put a light manufacturing on the mall site. And so those people are not all going to live in St. Tammany Parish, but they're going to come here to work. And they're going to go across the street to Sam's, and they're going to spend money while they're here on their way home. There are all kinds of studies, and we have software that kind of shows where people come from. Like, Placer.ai is a good example. If you're familiar with Placer, we have that dashboard, and we use it all the time to show where people are coming from, where they're going after. And so how many people come from Picayune to shop at that Sam's Club, and how many people come from Bay St. Louis to shop at that Sam's Club. So that's sales tax revenue that we're able to generate that's not a burden on the residents of the St. Tammany Parish.
Gotcha. So there's people coming in from the outside community to be there. Washington Parish, St. Bernard Parish, all the places you were talking about that are
Same thing with development, right? Yeah. You want to bring in companies that are coming from the outside, so we're not just shuffling the same income around the community. We're buying the building, next to our office in Slidell, but that's still income that's generated here in St. Tammany Parish with all 4 owners that live in St. Tammany Parish, with our 2 buildings that we own in St. Tammany Parish. But when you're bringing these bigger businesses outside, they're reinvesting new funds into the community.
Yeah, and I'd say this: you'd be surprised what percentage of people from St. Bernard shop in Slidell.
Yeah, and Picayune still.
Definitely Picayune.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you think about St. Bernard, I mean, they could go to Metairie, they can go across to the West Bank, they can jump on the ferry, they can do all these things.
They come to Slidell because he thinks Chalmette and Slidell is the same.
Well,
I'm like, I'm from Slidell, and he's like, she's from Chalmette, and I'm like, well, my family is from the east, so close enough. I love them all, so I accept it all.
Look, being open to new business development in St. Tammany Parish, I think, is a key component. We're in a unique opportunity right now with the new, LIT port being built in St. Bernard Parish, the way the trucks are going to flow, they're going to come out mostly on a dedicated roadway that'll hit Parish Road, go out through that 510 interchange, and then they can head north to get to places that make more sense to distribute from, to go northeast and west, or they can head kind of south back into congestion in New Orleans. And the projections are that most of them are going to be heading north across the lake and coming through St. Tammany anyway. We need to have places for them to stop to be able to generate some of that revenue here in St. Tammany rather than them just driving through and using our infrastructure without contributing to it.
Hence storage.
Yeah, I mean, warehousing. I mean, we don't have much warehousing in Louisiana, and especially in South Louisiana. We have a vast undersupply of Class A warehouse space in the New Orleans metropolitan market.
Yeah, we've done a couple of closings on some of those facilities, but and the people are going to other parishes around here to buy things that are close enough on the interstate, but they're not buying that stuff here, and I can tell that from just seeing the transactions come and go through our system.
To our commercial side, yeah.
So cool. Well, this is a great conversation. We got about 2 minutes left. You got anything else you want to throw out there about your team and what you got going on?
Yeah, I'd like to say this. One of the things is, I mean, my background is very diverse and very vast in terms of different product lines and different things in commercial real estate. But one of the big things that we really see growing is the industrial side in the state of Louisiana. The governor's focused on it. The Susan Bourgeois, our economic development director, is focused on it. But at Colliers, we're, I think, uniquely suited to be able to handle some of that business. I mean, we do retail, office, industrial, we do multifamily, we do all kinds of sales of all those categories. But as it relates specifically to the industrial piece, we have a couple of guys that work for us that are absolutely phenomenal on the industrial side, especially on the ports and rail thing. One of our brokers actually came from the Port of New Orleans. He was in the executive pool. They put him through like every division at the Port of New Orleans, and so he's uniquely qualified to be able to handle maritime and rail based projects. And we're gonna see a big influx of that in Louisiana, and
It's exciting.
We're excited to be here. We're excited to work in all the categories. And like I said, if it's not something that we feel like we can handle the best based on the needs of the client, we're going to go leverage those resources in the organization to be able to handle the need.
That's very cool. Well, Chris, thanks for coming, buddy. It was a good conversation.
Thank you. It's fun. Let's get some more business.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we will. It's coming.